I was married to Xiao in our youth. Deeply in love. The envy of all who knew us. Until that night. When he coaxed me into drinking a bowl of sweet soup. The next morning, I awoke in the arms of a stranger. My husband, dressed in red robes, had been granted a high official position and married into a prominent family, riding a white horse. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself staring at the stranger, who had spent the night with me, and I clung to him desperately. In my previous life, he had only desired my body. In this life, his very eyes were filled with lust. He asked me what I wanted. I said, I want Xiao to fall from a great height. I want him to be shattered into pieces. Madam Xin, would you be willing to follow this lord? A hoarse, deep male voice echoed through the room. I clutched the blankets in terror, staring at the tall man sitting in the glow of the light. Red silk curtains hung warmly, and the room was filled with an alluring scent that stirred the imagination. I stared blankly at the scene before me, moving slightly, the aching pain throughout my body reminding me of last night's madness. But I was clearly already dead. I remembered that Xiao's wife had pushed me into the lotus pond, and at that time, the child in my womb was only 4 months old, both of us sinking to the bottom of the pond. Silence reigned, so still that one could hear a pin drop. I looked at the man. In my previous life, I had later learned that he was Xiao Yan, a close minister of the emperor and the Marquis of Wuan. On the second day of my previous life, he had asked me the same question, inquiring whether Shin's wife was willing to go with him. But how had I responded to him? At the time, I had looked at my bruised and battered body, filled with shame, and had begged him to spare me with my life. At that moment, Xiao Yan turned his head slightly toward me, his fingers clenched into fists behind his back, gazing at me coldly and steadily. After a moment of silence, he turned and left. Soon after, Xiao brought me back to the Marquis's family. In the carriage, he violently used his lips and tongue to clean the marks left by another man on my body, his eyes lingering on me with a look of resentment. I pulled out the short knife that the Marquis of Wuan had thrown at me and stabbed Xiao fiercely. But unfortunately, I couldn't kill him. I wanted to divorce him, but he knelt on the ground and stabbed himself with a knife, avoiding vital organs each time, begging me to forgive him once and let him go, even if it meant dying. He locked me in a room and guarded me day and night. At night, he would obsessively touch me while despising me for being dirty and filthy. Later, I became pregnant, and by calculating the timing, I knew it was Wu Wenho's child. Xiao refused to let me abort the child and forced me to give birth. Yet he stared at my abdomen every day with a gloomy expression, sending chills down my spine. His mother used this to humiliate me, accusing me of being unchaste and a slut. The Xin household could not tolerate a legitimate wife who had lost her virtue, so I was forced to become Xiao's concubine. His new wife was the daughter of the Grand Tutor. On her second day in the household, she brought her maidservants to have me serve her tea. The scalding hot tea accidentally spilled all over me. She laughed triumphantly. Who knows where you were slept with by some wild man? And now you're carrying his bastard. Your husband is kind-hearted, remembering your years of affection, and has allowed you to be a concubine. You should burn incense and pray fervently, hoping that the Xin family will prosper and thrive, so that you, this lowly woman, may have a place to save face. Those years of affection must be repaid. Xiao was my father's most favored disciple. I met him when we were both young and unknown. He was exceptionally intelligent from a young age, passing the county exams and the imperial exams with flying colors, winning 3 consecutive top honors. I first met Xiao when I was 13. That year, he came from Jiangnan and knocked on the door of my home. He stood at the bottom of the stone steps, dressed in a plain white robe, his face fair and stern, The spring breeze rustled his sleeves, and golden light filtered through the tree branches, casting a warm glow on his slender shoulders. The young man's broad shoulders stood straight, and he gave me a faint smile, causing even the magnolia flowers behind him to bow. In that smile, I was lost, embarking on a path with no return. In my previous life, I finally realized that scholars are often faithless men. Xinchang Yao, your path to victory was paved with my father's countless nights of burning the midnight oil, writing every word with blood and sweat. It was also paved with my figure kneeling on the 99 steps of Puji Temple in the snow, begging the Buddha to protect you. But what did those years of kindness and affection bring me? It was your heartless act of handing over your wife to another man. It was your indifference as you allowed your elderly mother and new wife to humiliate and persecute me, leading to my tragic death in the pond. It was the tragic death of my father, who could not bear the shame and passed away in despair. I lowered my head, recalling the scenes from my past life. My heart felt as though it were being squeezed, unable to breathe. The pent-up hatred and resentment weighed heavily upon me, leaving me no outlet. I could only let the tears fall onto the bedsheet embroidered with crimson pomegranates. Xiao Yan spoke coldly, "If you don't want to, then forget it. Stop crying." I raised my head, gently wiped the tears from my face with my fingers, and curved my lips into a smile as seductive as a fox. My body beneath the thin blanket was naked. I pulled the blanket up and cautiously extended my pale, bruised right hand toward him. My voice soft, "Sir, Xinchang Yao's wife died yesterday. Didn't she?" The man by the bed heard this and paused for a moment before reaching out to grasp my hand. His palm was warm, broad, and calloused from years of martial arts training. He stepped closer, suddenly bending down to come face to face with me. I was so frightened that I pressed myself tightly against the wall. His eyes, sharp like those of an eagle or a wolf, fixed on me with an intense, guarded gaze, cold as a blade. After 2 lifetimes, it was only at this moment that I truly saw what Xiao Yan looked like. He had a cold, stern face with sharp features, eyebrows that arched sharply into his temples, and a gaze that was both harsh and menacing. As for the figure beneath his brocade robe, despite being drugged last night, I remembered it clearly: his sturdy build, muscular physique, broad shoulders, straight posture, and a tight, powerful waist. He was completely different from Xinchang Yao. One was as calm and gentle as a river, while the other was a wild and indifferent lone wolf. Xiao Yan, like a wolf, brushed his rough fingers across my eyebrows, nose, and finally stopped at my lips, which were still raw from last night. He whispered, "Tomorrow, I will have Xinchang Yao mourn his death. This world will no longer have Jiang Qingyue." The words had been spoken, and I understood. No man would openly claim another's wife. My left hand was beneath the blanket, my palm sweaty from clenching my fist. I repeated the motion, finally making up my mind. With a hardened heart, I sat up straight, leaned in, and gently pressed a kiss against his cheek. Xiao Yan's body visibly stiffened for a moment before slowly turning to look at me. Perhaps it was my imagination, but his previously cold eyes seemed to hold a fleeting glimpse of tenderness, and the corners of his mouth twitched ever so slightly. I wanted to say a few more words, but a voice came from outside the door. "Marquis, Minister Shin has come to fetch his wife." My face paled instantly. I glanced at Xiao Yan's expression and saw that he had returned to his previous cold demeanor. He stood up straight, looked down at me, and spoke in a tone devoid of emotion. "Xinchang Yao said yesterday that as long as he came to fetch you, you would inevitably go back with him. What will you do?" What should I do? It turned out that Xinchang Yao had always thought this way, both in this life and the last. He held me in his grasp, believing that as long as he was willing, I would eagerly follow him out of gratitude. I pondered this in my heart and spoke in a soft voice, Marquis. If you no longer want me, just give me a cup of poisoned wine. Don't push me back to the Shin family. Xiao Yan picked up the clothes beside him, threw them on the bed, and closed the door as he walked out. I picked up the clothes on the bed. They were all newly made of precious materials I could never afford. He must be sending me out to meet Yao with him. I wonder what Xiao Yan is up to. Could he possibly need me to humiliate Yao? I had no intention of seeing him, but perhaps it is for the best. In this new life, I do want to see with my own eyes how that gentleman, who appears so noble and upright, will grovel like a dog before power and authority. The spring attire was as thin as a cicada's wing, adorned with large peony patterns in emerald green and jade-colored silk, with layers of crimson brocade skirts that were both magnificent and alluring. I was momentarily dazzled by the beauty. In truth, I had always favored vibrant colors. My features were naturally striking, and the more elaborate and dazzling the attire, the more it complemented me. It was probably several years ago when Yao, under the influence of alcohol, confessed his feelings, saying he didn't want others to gaze upon my beauty, that he didn't want me to be too flashy. From that day on, I began to adopt a more delicate and simple style, wearing tea-colored garments year-round. Yet now, Xiao Yan has prepared such vibrant attire for me. What kind of attire does he truly prefer? My long hair was pinned up with gold-threaded ruby hairpins, revealing my slender, fair neck. If one ignored the marks on it, never mind. I endured the discomfort and pushed open the door with one hand. I immediately saw Xiao Yan outside the door. He was leaning against the round wooden pillar at the entrance. His eyes closed as he rested. Someone as vigilant as him must have heard the sound of the door opening. But he remained motionless, like an old monk in meditation, exuding an aura that seemed to say, "Keep out." I clenched the hem of my skirt, struggling to overcome the fear in my heart, and took one step toward him. When I was close enough to touch him, I wanted to reach out and touch him to show my affection and closeness. But I saw that my hand was trembling slightly, so I withdrew it and just tilted my head up and called him softly. The next second, he opened his eyes and looked down at me. For a moment, his eyes darkened, and the fleeting emotion disappeared before I could catch it. It took several corridors to get from the room to the front hall. Xiao Yan walked ahead of me. He was tall and broad, and each step he took was twice as long as mine. Last night's torment made it difficult for me to walk, and I was exhausted before I even reached the halfway point. I dared not ask him to slow down, so I gritted my teeth and followed behind. Later, as we walked, for some reason his pace slowed, giving me a chance to catch my breath, and I felt slightly better. Along the way, I thought mostly about how to please this man. He was so serious and uninteresting. Would he really be captivated by such matters? After all, in his previous life, he had never had a woman, and I had never heard of any lovers or marriage plans. Looking at the figure of the man ahead, I even dared to think of another thing. After everything was done, I would escape, far away. As we approached the front hall, Xiao Yan suddenly stopped in his tracks. I nearly collided with his back, but he seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. He raised his hand and pressed it against my forehead, preventing me from crashing into his iron-like shoulders. I instinctively took a step back, but because my skirt was so long and heavy, I kept my head down and missed the momentary stiffness in Xiao Yan's eyes. He had stopped because he had changed his mind. Originally, he was supposed to take me to see Yao, but for some reason, he suddenly changed his mind and led me to the screen at the back of the hall. He called over several maidservants. The maidservants of Marquis' family were well trained, and in an instant, a soft couch and various foods and teas were neatly arranged behind the screen. Xiao Yan stepped out from behind the screen, and I stared at his back. lost in thought. The sounds from the hall reached my ears, and I realized that this spot could overlook the entire scene in front of me. The moment I heard Shin Changyao's voice, my mind went blank, filled with a burning desire to tear him apart. My nails dug deeply into the wooden table beside me, nearly breaking my nails, when the maid beside me quickly pulled my hand away. I glanced at her, withdrew my hand, and coldly looked ahead. At that moment, Xiao Yan was sitting with his back to me on the chair at the head of the table. I couldn't see his expression, but I could see every move Shin Changyao made. So, in my previous life, when he came to demand someone, he had looked like this, so confident and without a trace of regret. Even his words seemed to speak of certain victory. Shin Changyao's voice lacked its usual clarity, tinged with a hint of hoarseness. Marquis, yesterday my wife and I came here for a banquet. Due to intoxication, we stayed the night at your Marquis's family. Today, my wife and I will not trouble you further. Shin, you must be mistaken. There is no wife of yours in this Marquis's family. Xiao Yan leaned back in the armchair, playing with a jade teacup in his left hand. Shin Changyao had been bowing with his hands clasped in front of him. But upon hearing this, he suddenly looked up and stared straight at Xiao Yan. I saw his face turn from pale to gray. At that moment, the sky outside, which had been bright, suddenly darkened, and thick clouds rolled in, pressing down heavily. Shin Changyao's figure swayed for a moment in the flickering light. But in the blink of an eye, he stood still. His hands, hidden in his sleeves, were already clenched into fists. His eyes were bloodshot as he knelt on the ground, pleading, Marquis, you promised me, just one night, and you would return my wife to me. You said she didn't want to, that you wouldn't force her. Xiao Yan had been calm and composed, but now he felt inexplicably irritated. She doesn't want to. Shin Changyao visibly relaxed and said, Thank you, Marquis. She doesn't want to. She just doesn't want to go back with you. Zhao Yin Yuan continued. Impossible. Shin Changyao blurted out. Zhao Yenyuan impatiently threw something on the ground. It was the jade pendant Shin Changyao had given him as a token of their love. And when he threw it, the jade shattered into pieces. This is yours. Within tomorrow, I must see the funeral procession at the Shin mansion. Shin Changyao seemed half mad as he crawled over and gathered the shards in his hands. No one knew what he was thinking as he lowered his head. But after a moment of silence, he turned his face, his brows and eyes filled with ruthlessness, and asked in a low voice, What about the vacancy in the Ministry of Revenue? Zhao Yan stood up, blocking my view, and seemed to glance in my direction before saying, That depends on how fast you are tomorrow. I stood behind the screen, watching this absurd scene, and suddenly laughed silently. The light in my eyes faded inch by inch, and by the end, tears fell uncontrollably, seeping into the blue bricks beneath my feet. Zhao Yan stood before me. I raised my eyes to look at him, and the hatred I couldn't hide was directed straight at him. He froze, then wiped the tears from my face with his rough fingers and spoke his first words to me today, I'm sorry. I turned my face away, avoiding his hand, watching as his hand paused in midair before silently withdrawing. As a woman who had been given away by her husband just last night, and now saw him using me as a bargaining chip, I should have been filled with anger and resentment, yet also heartbroken. Would Zhao Yan like this? I didn't know, I could only try and see. There was something more urgent on my mind. I followed Zhao Yan's footsteps and gently tugged at his sleeve. So lightly it was almost imperceptible. Yet he stopped immediately. He turned his head and looked down at me. I quickly withdrew my hand and whispered, Marquis, may I see my father? Seeing him frown, I added, just in private. I won't let anyone see me. I'm just afraid tomorrow's events will scare him. He didn't say yes or no, but asked instead, "Have you had breakfast?" I shook my head. He spoke again, then turned and walked away. "We'll discuss the rest later. Eat first." During breakfast, I ate with a heavy heart, half anxious and half uneasy. As a result, I didn't even notice that almost all the dishes on the table were prepared to my liking. Without Xiao Yan's permission, I couldn't leave the Marquis's family. So, I decided to write a letter and ask the maid by my side to help me send it out. She followed Xiao Yan's orders, so she would certainly ask him about my matter first. As long as she asked him, even if the letter couldn't be delivered, she could at least remind him of it again. Just as I picked up the brush, a servant came to report, "Lady, your father-in-law has arrived." My right hand, which was holding the brush, trembled suddenly, and I drew a long line on the slightly yellow paper. I stared at the paper for a long time before getting up and walking out. When I arrived, my father was standing with his back to the house, staring blankly at the paulownia tree in the courtyard. Hearing the sound, he turned around. The years had turned his temples white. Seeing the weary figure before me, I couldn't help but cry, choking out, "Father." In my previous life, he died in anger with no one by his side, and I was locked up in the Shin family at the time, unable to even see him for the last time. He had been frowning, but when he saw me crying, he became flustered. "Qingyue, tell your father what happened. Who bullied you? Where is Shin Changyao? Why did he leave you here alone? Why?" A gentleman is compared to jade for his virtue, clear and upright, pure and untainted. My father had been praised by all as a scholar and gentleman for decades. How could he bear such a reality? So I said, "No, it's my fault. I fell in love with someone else and want to divorce Shin Changyao." As a father, one may tolerate a child's mistakes in every way, but one would never allow anyone to harm them. If he were to find out that Shin Changyao had wronged me, he would likely risk his life to seek justice for me. Therefore, before the matter was settled, I let him know that I had been treated this way by the Shin family. Perhaps he would follow the path of his past life. It would be better for him to blame me, to accuse me of being heartless and ungrateful, of being fickle. Jiang Qingyue. He was indeed furious, his fingers trembling slightly beneath his sleeves. "How have I raised you these past decades? How could you be so ungrateful? Shin Changyao was so good to you, willing to pluck the stars from the sky for you. How could you bear to treat him this way? Look, Shin Changyao truly loves me. Even my father was deceived by him. No one knows that this love, in the face of power and influence, is like sand blown by the wind. It vanishes in an instant." I lowered my head, feigning anger. "Anyway, I truly love the Marquis. I have already divorced Shin Changyao, but he probably isn't willing to let go, so he'd rather have me dead. So if any news of a funeral comes from the Shin family tomorrow, don't take it seriously. How could I? How could I give birth to such a daughter?" He raised his hand, then lowered it, searching around for a stick. Finally, he found a branch and was about to strike my arm like he did when we were children. I didn't try to dodge, but the branch was stopped midair by a large hand. The hand caught the branch, pushed it away respectfully, then pulled me behind him. Xiao Yan stood in front of me, speaking calmly. "Father-in-law." My father took 2 steps back, holding the branch. "Marquis, don't call him that. Who is your father-in-law? I only have one son-in-law, Shin Changyao." Xiao Yan heard this, bit his lip, and didn't speak, only saying, "Don't hit her." I stepped out from behind him and continued, "Father, a wise bird chooses its perch. I have found someone better. Escaping the sea of suffering is a good thing." Xiao Yan stood beside me, and I did not wish to say more. only uttering a few more words to provoke my father. Later, my father left the Marquis family with a look of disappointment on his face. Before he departed, I couldn't help but call out to him, but he refused to look back at me even once. I had done it on purpose, just to make him so angry that he would leave this place. Given his temperament, after such an incident, he would inevitably feel ashamed to face Yao, and only then would he leave. As long as he left this place and went far away, I could finally be free and unburdened. The square courtyard was drenched in rain. The roof tiles glistened with moisture in the rain, and raindrops pattered on the overlapping tiles, making the scene seem even more desolate. The absurdity of yesterday and the events of today were too much for me to bear. At that moment, I needed rest. So I feigned fainting, collapsing toward the man beside me and landing in his broad, warm embrace. I had only been pretending, but I never expected to faint for real. All I remember is him lifting me up and carrying me away in a hurry. During my unconsciousness, I slept restlessly, vaguely sensing a pair of hands gently caressing my cheeks, restraining their touch as they stroked me again and again. However, when I awoke, the room was empty. The sky outside had grown dark, and the air, still damp from the rain, was heavy with humidity. In the dimly lit room, only a few candles flickered, their wicks occasionally crackling. I sat on the bed, slowly bending over to hug my knees, and cried silently. Tears welled up in my eyes, soaking the silk quilt, and no matter how much I wiped them away, they kept flowing. It wasn't until that moment that I dared to calm down and think about the days I had wasted, hate the past, and fear the uncertain future. Why me? What did I do wrong to deserve this? This world is so cruel. Everyone only cares whether I am loyal to my husband and remain chaste until death. But no one cares that I am a living, breathing human being, not an object to be traded for power and desire. A faint sound came from inside the room. I tensed up and asked, "Who's there?" A maidservant emerged from the shadows. Her expression panicked. "It's me, your servant. There's no one else." I composed myself and asked her curiously. I didn't ask if there was anyone else. She knelt and said, "Yes. It's just that I'm nervous. This is my first day serving the lady, so I'm a bit nervous." "Don't call me lady." I got out of bed, sat in front of the mirror, and added after a moment, "The Marquis hasn't taken a wife yet, so there will be a proper wife in the future. You mustn't call me that. I naturally wouldn't want to be his concubine either. He'll eventually grow tired of me, and by then, no matter where I flee, he probably won't care." She looked hesitant, but, "Enough." I cut her off. "What's your name?" After some questioning, I got a general understanding of the situation in the Marquis family. Besides Xiao Yan, the master of the house, there were only a few servants and maids in the mansion. Fortunately, the household was small, and there were no elders, so I wouldn't have to deal with anyone else. The maid assigned to me was named Wu Mei. She looked like an ordinary servant girl, but the one who had pulled my hand away this morning clearly had some martial arts skills. It made sense, as Xiao Yan was originally a military officer. Over the years, he had been through countless battles on the battlefield, and even his mansion had been infiltrated by spies from enemy nations. I pondered the possibility of Xiao Yan killing Yao with a single stroke. For some reason, I felt that as soon as I spoke, Xiao Yan would draw his sword and strike. But clearly, I am not that important to him. I am merely a plaything he took a fancy to in his spare time, an object he traded for another object. Yao has been promoted, and he is a capable lieutenant in Xiao Yan's camp. Where do I get the confidence to think that I could do anything? Fortunately, what I want is not for Yao to be killed with a single blow. That would be too easy for him. The next day, the Shin mansion indeed held a funeral. Wu Mei told me that Shindarin knelt before the empty coffin in the funeral hall, refusing to eat or drink. I held a hairpin in my hand, glancing at her, wondering why Xiao Yan had her say that and what it meant. "Where is the Marquis?" I asked softly. I hadn't seen him since yesterday. Could it be that he had already grown tired of me in just 2 days? The Marquis had gone to the military camp early that morning, saying he had important matters to attend to in the coming days and wouldn't be returning to the mansion. He had instructed his wife, the young miss, to stay and rest assured. In the days that followed, Xiao Yan indeed did not return to the mansion. I spent each day in anxious anticipation, from dawn until dusk. But he never appeared. To avoid wasting time, I began inquiring about his daily preferences within the mansion. But no one knew what he liked to eat, wear, or drink. His martial arts-trained maid, Bai Yu, told me that the general was always in danger, so he was naturally reserved and did not wish for others to know his preferences, lest they exploit his weaknesses. Over the past few days, although Xiao Yan had not been seen, and there was no one in charge of the mansion, the Marquis's family remained orderly. Even the fruits and vegetables served each day were different, never repeated. Even when I did not leave the house, my clothes and jewelry were delivered to my room in various styles. I no longer waited passively. Early the next morning, I personally waited in the kitchen, simmering a bowl of lotus root and pork rib soup and preparing a plate of osmanthus cake. Just as I was about to carry the food box to the military camp, Xiao Yan returned. When he entered the room, I was busy arranging the food box. Hearing the sound, I looked up. The man before me was dressed in a black, narrow-sleeved riding outfit. His black hair was tied back with a black ribbon, and a crimson sash tightly wrapped around his broad shoulders and narrow waist. I clenched the lid of the food box tightly with my fingertips, to marry his indifferent gaze, and forced a smile. "Marquis, I made some food for you. Would you like to try some?" He glanced down at the food box without saying a word. He turned around, took a white conical hat from the cabinet, lifted my face without a word, placed the hat on my head, and carefully tied it under my chin. I just opened my mouth. But he knelt down and embraced me around the waist. The tall red horse galloped through several streets. The man behind me held me tightly in front of him. The horse ran so fast that I felt like I was about to be thrown off, but his large hand remained firmly gripped around my waist. I clenched my teeth and cursed him in my heart, rough brute. In the blink of an eye, the horse stopped at the city gate. He lifted me off the horse and leaped onto the city wall. Looking down at the scene on the long street, I realized what he had brought me to see. From the donkey gate came a wedding procession. The man leading the procession was dressed in white. His eyes lowered, his expression sorrowful. I remembered, today was the day of my funeral. Once today was over, there would be no more Jiang Qingyue in this world. Through the white veil, I tried to see Shen Changyao's eyes. White paper money fluttered through the air, and a few pieces were blown onto the city wall. I reached out to catch the flying flowers meant to mourn me, holding them in my hand and gently rubbing them. The white and black figures on the city wall went unnoticed by anyone. I stared for a while, feeling no emotion, yet an inexplicable restlessness filled my heart. I turned my head to look at the man behind me. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me tightly, and pinched my jaw with his right hand, forcing me to look forward. Xiao Yan bent down, his eyes fixed on the front, his hot breath brushing against my ear. "Jiang Qingyue, look clearly. From now on, you have nothing to do with him." My heart skipped a beat, and I stared blankly ahead, sensing this was a good opportunity. So, I raised my hand and gently wrapped it around his hard, slender arm, feeling the heat and tension beneath my fingertips. I whispered. Marquis, Qingyue must thank you for letting me see such a treacherous, cold-hearted person. From now on, Qingyue will follow only you. As long as Marquis does not reject me, I will have only Marquis in my heart. The breath behind me paused for a moment. I couldn't see his expression, only feeling his fingertips trace my cheek. My heart raced. Even when facing Xinqiangyao, I had never expressed my feelings so directly. Yet this man before me, whom I had only known for a few days. Thinking of this, I felt a pang of regret. Perhaps at this moment, I looked more like a lowly, promiscuous woman. Xiao Yan liked married women, perhaps he enjoyed the thrill of secrecy and coercion. My direct confession might leave him unmoved. Fortunately, he was moved. Xiao Yan withdrew his hand and pulled me into his embrace. I heard him whisper a faint good. The wind on the city wall was strong, and the sound was carried away for miles. I doubted I had heard correctly but dared not ask. So I obediently let him hold me. Back at the mansion, I followed Xiao Yan to dinner, but he hurried off to the military camp, leaving me to return to my room. Seeing the empty table inside, I called for Wu Mei. Where is the food I left here this morning? Why is it gone? I had assumed the food had gone cold and told someone to dispose of it. The items in this room would not be touched without my instructions. So I asked out of curiosity. Wu Mei replied. The Marquis ordered it to be removed. I nodded and was about to dismiss her when she hesitated. As if she wanted to say something, I urged her to speak. Wu Mei finally spoke up. The Marquis said that Yangxing said you couldn't eat the osmanthus cake because it would cause a rash. So, Yangxing was the young guard by Xiao Yan's side. I knew him, he had been with Xiao Yan for over a decade. I noted this incident down. Fortunately, he had gone to attend to something else and hadn't had a chance to eat those things. Wu Mei attended to me by my side, while Baiyu frequently came and went from the Marquis' family, bringing me news from outside. It must have been Xiao Yan's doing. And that's why I knew my father had indeed left the capital after that day. She didn't say where he went, but I knew he must have returned to Wuan County, where my mother was buried. The funeral of the Shen family yesterday caused quite a stir. The people of the capital were discussing the Shen family's loyalty and filial piety on the streets and alleys, and the deep love between Shen Changyao and his wife. However, in a corner where no one noticed, Shen Changyao changed into his crimson official robe, held his tablet, and stepped into the core of imperial power. The chirping of cicadas and the croaking of frogs filled the air, and the dim night sky urged sleep. A crescent moon hung high above the treetops. In the mansion at night, lamps were lit everywhere. But in the quiet study, the only sound was the suppressed breathing of someone struggling to breathe. I don't know how to win Xiao Yan's favor. He has neglected me for so long, and even when he returns, it is only briefly. If I continue to remain silent and unnoticed in the courtyard, how will I carry out my plans? Today, he is rare in the study, so I began to tempt him. He must love my body. Otherwise, why would he trade such a high-ranking official position for a single night of pleasure? I drank some wine to give myself courage. When I pushed open the study door, my face was already slightly flushed. I placed my fingertips on the silk sash around his waist, gently tugging at it to untie the knot. Xiao Yan looked down at me, his jaw tight, his eyes seeming to burn with flames. I wrapped my white arms around his neck, lifted my face, and kissed and licked his Adam's apple. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his hand on the chair clenched tightly. From his tightly closed lips to his high nose bridge to his deep eyes. I kissed him all the way, and he finally couldn't control himself. But at the last moment, I couldn't suppress my fear. The memories of that night surged back like a tidal wave, making my whole body tense up. I pushed him away instinctively. No. Xiao Yan collapsed on top of me. Upon hearing my words, His tall figure froze instantly. He raised his gaze to look at me. His eyes, which had been as fiery as a wolf's, suddenly calming down. He gave me a heavy look before getting up and turning his back to me to tidy his clothes. If you don't want to, don't force yourself. Don't do this again. He turned his head to look at me, his expression cold and hard, a stark contrast to the tender affection he had shown moments ago. Xiao Yan left, leaving the study to me. There was a large bed in his study, the same one I was lying on at that moment. I had already sobered up, sitting blankly on the bed, staring at the moonlight outside the window, unsure of what to do. What was I doing? I wanted to take advantage of him, yet I was unwilling to give anything in return. At that moment, I recalled that when I kissed his neck earlier, I had vaguely seen some red spots, as if a rash had just subsided, but I had forgotten to ask about it. I should have shown some concern. After that night, Xiao Yan began to stay at the mansion every day. Even when he had to go to the military camp for duty, he would rush back to the mansion in time to have dinner with me. We tacitly agreed not to mention that night. And the more time we spent together, the more I began to understand his preferences, and I started to deliberately look for topics related to those interests. I took several military strategy books from his study and studied them diligently whenever I had free time, just so I could chat with him about them during casual conversations. I even read some political history books and occasionally glanced at them while he was handling official business, offering my insights. However, he seemed to dislike me talking about these things. I could sense it every time I deliberately brought them up, and he would avoid the topic. I wondered if I had said too much or touched on something sensitive, so I became increasingly cautious in my words afterward. On the other hand, when I occasionally mentioned my favorite paintings, calligraphy, or ancient zither, he would become much happier. He even recognized some famous paintings and incomplete musical scores. And sometimes he would pick up on what I said, then look at me with a smile, waiting for my nod before his eyes would sparkle for a moment. Could it be that he actually had the heart of a scholar and artist, but was destined to become a military general instead? One day, I was in my room embroidering a scented pouch for Xiao Yan. I heard Bai Yu say that his birthday was approaching, and I didn't know what to give him, so I decided to embroider a scented pouch for him. When he came in, I was studying the design. Hearing his footsteps, I hurriedly hid the item. Xin Changyao has recently been commended for his contributions to the grain reform policy. The Grand Tutor intends to marry his daughter to him, and I suspect the Emperor will grant the marriage tomorrow. Now that I can approach him naturally, I took his hand, had him sit down, and asked, "Marquis, why are you telling me this?" Xiao Yan looked at me. "If you find this offensive, I can call off the marriage tomorrow." I looked at him in confusion, wondering what he meant. Was he testing whether I still cared about Xin Changyao? I have nothing to feel uncomfortable about. Marquis, you forgot, you said it yourself. From that day onward, I have no connection with that man. Who he marries has nothing to do with me. I said with a smile. Not only does it have nothing to do with me, but I even need to ensure that this marriage goes through. Li Yunqian must marry Xin Changyao. If she doesn't, how will I enjoy the show? Xin Changyao's mother is not a good person. She is uneducated, full of rustic thoughts, and difficult to get along with. In the past, I tolerated her mostly to avoid trouble and for Xin Changyao's sake. But Li Yunqian is the daughter of the Grand Tutor. That status is more than enough to marry the crown prince. She will certainly not let Xin's mother off easily. As for why Li Yunqian is willing to marry down, it's simply because she has long been infatuated with Xin Changyao. It was in the second year of my marriage to Xin Changyao that Li Yunqian fell deeply in love with him, even forcing him to divorce me and marry her. At the time, Xin Changyao might have been naive and unaware of the taste of power. He looked at Li Yunqian coldly while holding my hand tightly, making her give up hope. He vowed that he would only love me for the rest of his life, even if it meant dying. Xiao Yan leaned in close to look at me, as if trying to read something on my face. But his eyes reflected two small images of me, both with open, smiling expressions. I took the opportunity to fan the flames. Such a wonderful marriage. He wouldn't dare refuse. If he really refuses, it means... Before I could finish, Xiao Yan snorted coldly, gripped my wrist, and whispered, "There won't be such an opportunity." On Xiao Yan's birthday, the mansion was still quiet. I was a bit surprised. With his influence in the court, once people found out it was his birthday, the doorstep would be worn out from people coming to visit. Why was it so quiet now? Wu Mei finally told me that the birthday he had told everyone was fake. His real birthday was on the 17th of September. And today was his true birthday. Bai Yu was Wu Mei's older sister. She had a bad temper. But she was only angry with her younger sister. She glared at Wu Mei and said, "Why did you tell him everything? You're going to expose the Marquis' true nature." Wu Mei opened her round eyes and retorted, "I only told the lady, not anyone else." "You better hope so. Last time you were muttering to the dog in the corner about how the Marquis doesn't like chestnuts." I was afraid I'd forget before I got to the lady. So I used the dog as a reminder. It was a hot summer day, and the heat was intense. Large barrels of ice were placed in the courtyard to cool off. I fanned myself and smiled at the two sisters arguing. Bai Yu had now become my personal messenger, though I didn't know who had instructed her. Whenever she had a chance, she would tell me about the matters concerning the Shin family. For instance, the new lady Shin was in a bitter dispute with her mother-in-law, causing Shin Darin to refuse to return home every day. I couldn't help but smirk inwardly. That was only natural. In my previous life, when Li Yunqian entered the mansion, I was the family's disgrace, and everyone could insult me. She and Shin's mother had a common target for their hatred. Now that I'm gone, they naturally turned against each other. I led Wu Mei and the others to decorate the mansion modestly for my birthday. We prepared birthday noodles, a birthday banquet, and a few red lanterns, just to make it feel special. Wu Mei leaned close to me and whispered, "The Marquis will be very happy. No one has ever celebrated his birthday before. He's always been alone. It's so nice to have a wife." When Xiao Yan returned, I was directing the servants to hang the lanterns on the eaves. I stepped back without noticing the steps behind me and thought I was about to fall. But he caught me from behind. I turned to look at him, and as I raised my eyes, a smile blossomed on my lips. I said with a charming smile, "Happy birthday, Marquis." He wrapped his arms around my waist and placed me on the ground, saying only, "Don't do anything so dangerous next time." I looked down at the steps, which were less than half a foot high, and pondered their danger. That perfume pouch I had been embroidering for days, I had hesitated to take out because the embroidery was so poor. I had originally wanted to embroider a tiger, but the thread had gone askew, turning it into a sickly cat. Truly unlucky. Then, Wu Mei scratched her head innocently and asked, "Lady, where is the perfume pouch you embroidered for the Marquis?" Xiao Yan pulled the pouch out of the basket and examined it for a while. "Did you embroider this?" I nodded. "For me?" I nodded again. He looked at it for a while before finally saying, "This rabbit is actually quite cute." Well, a rabbit is a rabbit. Xiao Yan casually tucked the pouch into his hand and turned to lead me out of the mansion. I stood there dazed, looking at the bustling street, and realized that I hadn't been out in ages. The long street stretched for dozens of miles, adorned with lantern towers and colorful pavilions. Thousands of lanterns flickered, casting a dazzling glow across the ground. The lively atmosphere filled my heart with a sense of peace. Xiao Yan held my hand tightly as we made our way through the crowd of vendors to the riverbank. He was holding several sky lanterns in his hands. According to him, it was a custom in his hometown to make wishes on one's birthday, write them on sky lanterns, and release them into the sky. Xiao Yan handed me the pen and lantern, asking me to write my wish. I thought for a moment. Today was his birthday, so I picked up the pen and wrote, "May the Marquis be healthy and live a long life." Xiao Yan took it, glanced at it, and expressionlessly threw it into the river, saying, "Don't write about me. Write about yourself." I held the pen in confusion, but today is your birthday. He turned to look at me, his handsome face flickering in the moonlight. "From now on, every year, I will make my birthday wish for you. I don't need one for myself." Is this a fish taking the bait? Such heartfelt words were hard to imagine coming from the mouth of a man as cold and hard as iron. I smiled and handed him the pen. Who writes wishes for themselves? If the Marquis doesn't mind, why don't you write it yourself? He stared at the pen for a moment, then turned away and said coldly, "Write it yourself." I suddenly realized I had never seen his handwriting before. Someone like Xiao Yan must have a strong, forceful style. I took the lamp and wrote a few more words on it. I knew exactly what Xiao Yan wanted to see at that moment. I held the lantern up to him and said happily, "Marquis Ho, look. I've written it." Xiao Yan looked at the words, his lips curling slightly, but he quickly hid the smile, as if afraid someone might see. I looked up at the lanterns floating away like stars and tugged at the corner of my mouth. He must be happy. What I had written was, "May we be together every day like this day with the Marquis." On the way back, I wanted to walk through Mingxi Alley because there was a place there that sold delicious apricot flour rice cakes, and I wanted him to try them. But as we approached the alley, Xiao Yan suddenly grabbed my arm and insisted we take another route. No matter how I pleaded, he refused. As we were arguing, a woman's voice interrupted us. I turned to look and saw a man and a woman in the lamplight. The speaker was Li Yunqian, dressed in red, standing beside Xinchang Yao, who was staring intently at my hands clasped tightly with Xiao Yan's. I fell silent, letting Xiao Yan lead me away, and whispered, "Let's take another route." Xiao Yan coldly looked at the two of them, clenched my hand, and was about to turn and leave. Li Yunqian called out to him, "I hear that the Marquis, who has always kept his distance from women, has a woman in his mansion. I suppose it must be the one by your side? Indeed. She is a beauty beyond compare. No wonder she has the Marquis so smitten." Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes. "Who are you to bark at me?" Li Yunqian's face froze, and she looked at Xinchang Yao beside her. But Xinchang Yao didn't respond, lost in his own thoughts. I noticed Li Yunqian's movement and asked subconsciously, "Are you pregnant?" At that moment, Xinchang Yao seemed to come back to life and stopped Li Yunqian from speaking. "Husband. Yunqian. It's late. Let's go back to the mansion." Li Yunqian glared at him, then broke free from his grip and walked toward us. Xiao Yan raised his hand to shield me. "That's right. It's still early, so we haven't told anyone. My husband loves the child in my womb so much. Why don't you hurry up and give the Marquis a child too?" She leaned close to my ear, her voice low enough for only me to hear. "Make sure you capture his heart. After all, beauty fades, and so does love. My husband doesn't want it, but he still clings to it. What a worthless piece of trash." I laughed. "I'm just a dog with a bone now. Even when you beat a dog, you have to look at its master's face, right?" I turned to Xiao Yan and said, "Marquis, this lady called you a worthless piece of trash." "You?" Li Yunqian stared at me with wide eyes, unable to speak for a moment. Xiao Yan didn't want to linger here any longer. He coldly glanced at Xinchang Yao. "Lord Li is getting old. His ears and eyes are failing him in the court. And yet he raised a daughter with such poor manners. His words carried a hidden meaning. On the way back, I asked him, Marquis Xiao, so that was the daughter of Lord Li? To be honest, I still feel a bit afraid of the Li family. Xiao Yan stopped in his tracks, furrowing his brows as he looked at me. Why? Nothing. Just trivial matters. They're all in the past now. Today is your birthday. Don't let these small things bother you. I took his arm and pulled out a packet of apricot flour rice cakes. Xiao Yan, you will investigate, won't you? If you look into it, you will find out that Li Taifu's second son once harassed me on the street and nearly kidnapped me into his mansion. Can today's curses from Li Yunqian and the humiliation her brother inflicted on me prompt you to take action against the Li family? As long as the Li family remains standing, even if Shen Changyao falls again, he will still have a chance to rise once more. Before he sent me away, he relied on the official position granted by Xiao Yan. However, that position brought him the Li family's support, so they must be eliminated. A few days later, Bai Yu told me that Li Taifu had offended the emperor. But the emperor, out of consideration for his years of service, granted him mercy and allowed him to resign and return to his hometown. The younger generation of the Li family had their positions in court demoted, and no one knew how Li Taifu had angered the emperor. All they knew was that the Li family was finished. Although Li Yunqian was anxious at the moment, as the wife of a minister, she still held a prestigious position, even higher than her sisters in the mansion. She felt an indescribable sense of superiority and no longer focused on the Li family, instead devoting herself to giving birth to the child and securing her status. In that alley, I instinctively asked Li Yunqian if she was pregnant, because I suddenly recalled my previous life, where she had become pregnant just a month after entering the mansion. At that time, I had also been diagnosed with pregnancy. I raised my hand and gently placed it on my abdomen. If everything went smoothly, considering my recent fatigue, I had initially assumed it was due to dealing with Xiao Yan, and had not even considered this possibility. I composed myself. This child cannot be kept. Its existence will only make me constantly think of the pain from my previous life, of the countless times I wanted it to die. It is merely the result of that night's medication, not the product of parental love. It should not have come into this world. Furthermore, if I were to leave in the future, the child would only be a burden. In my previous life, I had secretly left the mansion and gone to the pharmacy to buy a prescription. But before I could act, I was discovered by Shen Changyao. That prescription only needed one ingredient changed to secretly terminate the pregnancy. Xiao Yan was absent, and no one in the mansion could make such a decision. Preparing the potion was simple. Wu Mei happily brought it to me, as I had told her it would regulate my body and help me conceive the Marquis's child sooner. Looking at the bowl of pitch-black medicine before me, I thought of the child who had drowned with me in the pond in my previous life. It had never seen the light of day, never tasted the bitter and sweet flavors of the world, and now it lay forever silent in the darkness. But now, was I really going to take its life with my own hands? No. I pushed the bowl away. I couldn't drink it. Not now. If I drink the medicine and abort the child, Xiao Yan will definitely find out. He will also know that I did it on purpose. All my efforts over the past few months will be in vain. I told him so many words of admiration, yet I am aborting his child. How can I possibly explain this? My revenge is not yet complete. My plans are not yet finished. I need to wait a little longer. I pretended to be dizzy and secretly consulted a doctor outside the mansion. He was about to announce the good news, but I stopped him, gave him some silver, and told him to say it was a woman's ailment that couldn't be disclosed. The child in my womb is just like the one from my previous life, quiet, obedient, and never troublesome. I looked up at the half-open lattice window, where the last rays of the setting sun were neatly spread across the window frame. casting the shadows of the Polonia tree leaves outside into the room. When Xiao Yan returned at night, he looked at my face and asked, "Why have you grown so thin? Are you not eating?" When I was in a bad mood, I didn't feel like dealing with him, so I shook my head lazily. He didn't get angry, but instead seemed a bit awkward and said, "I'll send you a gift tomorrow." What? He didn't say anything else. Just told me there was a palace banquet tomorrow and that I should go with him. But some people in the imperial court have seen me. Doesn't Xiao Yan fear gossip? The next day, I realized he wasn't just unafraid, he was completely brazen. He took my hand and walked past everyone, using a cold gaze to force their questions back into their throats. Finally, they awkwardly bowed and muttered congratulations. Just a short while ago, Xiao Yan had asked the emperor to grant him marriage, and the bride was me. He wanted to marry me, to make me his wife. I was still in a daze, unable to react, when he had already led me past many people. Every time we passed someone, he introduced me in a gentle voice, "This is my wife, Jiang Qingyue." I was still Jiang Qingyue. I looked up at Xiao Yan. His brows and eyes were gentle and joyful at that moment. Whispers began to rise among the crowd. I overheard a few sentences. How come the wife of Zhao Marquis looks so much like the late wife of Shinshangshu? You noticed too? Could they be twins? Impossible. Jiang Xianqing only has one daughter. That's really strange. Among the women at the banquet, there were a few who recognized me. They covered their mouths with handkerchiefs and whispered among themselves. And standing among them was Li Yunqian. I assumed they weren't saying anything nice. I didn't pay much attention to it. If Xiao Yan wasn't afraid of these rumors, why should I be? After causing a commotion in the hall for a while, Xiao Yan sent someone to escort me outside for some fresh air, with Baiyu following closely behind me. When we reached a pavilion by the water, I stopped, my thoughts in disarray. Before I could sort them out, a figure appeared before me. I looked at him warily and took a half step back. Baiyu, seeing this, stepped in front of me. By all accounts, he should be in the prime of his career with a beautiful wife by his side. But the expression on his face as he looked at me was uncharacteristically dark. You? How does he treat you? Shin Changyao looked at me. Of course he is. Our marquis is not someone you can compare to, Baiyu said coldly. Her face flushed with anger. Shin Changyao ignored her and looked straight at me. It was he who forced you to stay, wasn't it? He is powerful and lustful. Did you stay by his side because you were afraid he would harm me? I nearly laughed in anger. When had he become such a despicable and repulsive person? Shin Changyao, I never knew you were such a self-important, self-righteous person. Did I praise you too much in the past? Making you think I would do anything for you? Even sacrifice my dignity? No. He pushed Baiyu away, grabbed my arms with both hands, and whispered hoarsely, I can only do this. I can only deceive myself. I regret it. You. It was my fault. You. Please forgive me. Just this once. I won't dare to do it again. It was my moment of weakness. I was blinded by power and committed such a heinous act. Come home with me. I promise I'll treat you as I did before. I'll love you well. I only love you. You. Let go. Baiyu held the sword horizontally across his neck and warned coldly. Shin Changyao's eyes were red, and he took a step forward, blood seeping from his neck. He laughed madly. Let her kill me. Let her do it. Without you, I don't want to live another day. I looked at him coldly, my expression calm. If I hadn't gone through that path in my previous life, I might have been moved by his deep affection. What a pity. I raised my hand to slap him, but saw him being kicked to the ground by someone. The person stood behind me. one hand holding me back. Marquis. I looked at Xiao Yan. Yao, lying on the ground, pushed himself up with his hands and stood up, looking at Xiao Yan behind me. Then he slowly knelt down, bending his spine, lowering his head with clenched fists, pleading pitifully, Marquis. Xiao Yan, I beg you. I will return my official position to you. Please. Please return my wife to me. Please. In the time I knew Yao, he was an extremely cold and arrogant man. Once, someone offered him a fortune for a painting, but the man had spoken words that displeased him, and he endured the pain of being beaten with sticks rather than agree to paint for him. Yet now, he was kneeling before me like a dog, offering up the high official position he had always dreamed of, begging another man to return me to him. My fingers clenched tightly, my heart racing, as I waited for Xiao Yan behind me to speak. The man's voice rang in my ear, low and firm, Yao. To you, she may be an object, something to be traded at will. But to me, she is not an object, she is a person. My wife. To me, Jiang Qingyue is priceless, worth more than 1,000 cities. My heart felt as though it had been struck by a heavy stone. I turned my head to look at him, only to meet his dark, piercing gaze. No. I forced myself to stay calm. It couldn't be like this. If he truly felt that way, he wouldn't have agreed to Yao's plan. He wouldn't have allowed Yao to use me as a bargaining chip. Yes. I cannot fall again. Men are selfish and terrifying. Their kindness is only temporary when their interests are not threatened. Yao looked agonized. As Xiao Yan was about to take me away, he suddenly rushed forward. Xiao Yan turned, grabbed by Yu's sword, and was about to strike him down. He was capable of it. Killing a second-rank official meant nothing to Xiao Yan. I stood in front of Yao, spreading my arms. Marquis. Don't. The sword tip stopped just inches from my side at an incredible speed. Xiao Yan growled, Are you crazy? Don't you want to live? I too felt a chill run down my spine, my back drenched in sweat. I was about to speak when Yao grabbed my hand and whispered, You still care about me, don't you? You still care about me, don't you? I know. I always knew. Our childhood friendship wasn't something you'd forget so easily. You. I remained silent, glancing at Xiao Yan. He was also staring at me, his cold, ruthless eyes fixed on me, as if waiting for an explanation. But I said nothing. Xiao Yan threw his sword aside, pulled me forcefully toward him, and growled, He treated you like that, and you still think of him? Jiang Qingyue. You're truly despicable. Marquis. He cut me off. Shut up. I don't want to hear it. Xiao Yan's body was tense, radiating a cold, murderous intent. He dragged me out of the palace banquet. Sitting in the carriage, I felt uneasy, staring out the window. Xiao Yan hadn't spoken a word to me since then. Though he had always been quiet and reserved, he would always find something to talk about when we were together. This was the first time he had ever looked at me with such a cold expression, not even bothering to open his eyes. If I hadn't stopped him earlier, letting him kill Yao in a fit of rage would have been so boring. I had thought it through when I rushed to block Yao. Given Xiao Yan's current feelings toward me, if he mistakenly believed I still harbored feelings for Yao, he wouldn't harm me, but he certainly wouldn't let Yao off easily. Even if he were to rebuke him in court or assign him a dangerous mission, it would make Yao suffer terribly. Xiao Yan is the kind of person who holds grudges and seeks revenge. He is capable of such actions. I suddenly thought of something and moved to his side. As soon as I moved closer to him, he shifted his hips and moved away from me again. This happened several times until he was cornered and had no choice but to open his eyes and look at me. his expression cold and intimidating. Your Excellency, did you really mean it when the Emperor ordered you to marry me today? With your status, you deserve someone better. How could I possibly be worthy of being the wife of a marquis family? I don't want to marry you. Xiao Yan pulled me over to sit across from him, then rested his elbows on his knees and leaned forward, staring straight into my eyes. The carriage was traveling through the bustling city, and the lights outside occasionally cast flickering shadows on his eyebrows and eyes. Amidst the lively commotion, he spoke. I'm not joking. I will only marry you. And I only want to marry you. If you refuse or I cannot marry you, I will return to the north, fight there for the rest of my life, and likely die on the battlefield. I clenched my fists and forced a difficult smile. Is that so? The carriage suddenly came to a halt, and I was thrown toward Xiao Yan, who held me tightly. Yang Xing's voice came from outside. Marquis, there's an ambush. The sound of arrows whistling through the air filled the air. Xiao Yan looked out with a grim expression. Hold on tight. Keep your head down. He pulled me into his arms, and in an instant, we were outside the carriage. With one hand, he sliced through the arrows with his sword, and with the other, he shielded me. A group of black-clad men jumped down from the city walls and charged toward us. I clung tightly to Xiao Yan's arm, trying to make myself as small as possible. The two sides fought fiercely, and by the end, Xiao Yan's men had nearly wiped out all the bandits. I clung to Xiao Yan's arm, my strength slowly fading, and I collapsed onto the ground. I faintly felt something wet trickling down my legs. When I woke up and opened my eyes, someone was holding my hand tightly. I moved slightly, and the person startled awake. You're awake. How do you feel? Does your head hurt? Or does anything else hurt? Can you hear me? Xiao Yan grabbed my hand and asked urgently, his face still covered in stubble. I recalled the events before fainting. I slowly placed my hand under the silk blanket and felt my stomach. Everything was fate. This child might not have been meant to be born into this world. Xiao Yan seemed to realize something and spoke cautiously. You're pregnant. It's our child. What? The child is still alive? The doctor said the fetal condition is unstable. We must take good care of it. Qing Yue, can you give birth to him? I know you endured the abortion medicine. No matter why you didn't drink it, give him a chance. He's meant to live. He survived twice. Be merciful and keep him. If you don't want him, I'll raise him alone. You won't have to see him. I stared at the canopy above my head, silent for a long time, then turned my head away, letting a tear fall into the pillow. Xiao Yan held my hand, pleading constantly, looking utterly humble. From that day onward, many people came to the mansion. Wu Mei led an old woman to see me. She had a head of white hair, bowed to me, and then looked at me with a face full of kindness. Wu Mei said beside me, "This is the Marquis's wet nurse." She had already returned to her hometown to grow old, but the Marquis specially sent someone to bring her back. Everyone in the mansion called this wet nurse Auntie. I helped her up, and she looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Good. So good. The Marquis is finally not alone. He Lao Lao was very good at taking care of people, attentive and thoughtful, and knew a lot. When the baby started to move in my womb later on, she was the one who helped me through it. From that day on, Xiao Yan kept a group of doctors in the mansion, both male and female. He was worried that childbirth was not an easy matter for women and felt that no amount of preparation was enough. Wu Mei was always cheerful, embroidering baby bibs, socks, and making one little hat after another. She would then present them to me. Madam, look! I made these tiger head hats for the little master and mistress. Are they nice? Be careful not to strain your eyes. There's plenty of time. You embroider every day. But be mindful of your health. I said gently. It's okay. It's okay. The little ones in the Marquis's family must wear the best. These fabrics were all collected by the Marquis from all over the place. I'm so happy just touching them. I gently placed my hand on my belly and thought to myself. So this is how it should be loved. It is eagerly awaited. Not despised and rejected like me. Later, the side room was filled with more toys, cradles and wooden chairs piled up. One day, I noticed the large wounds on Xiao Yan's fingers inside. The baby doesn't need those yet. There's no need to rush. He bit his lip, his body stiffening. Am I putting pressure on you? I'm just happy and can't help myself. I'll be more careful from now on. I scooped some soup from the bowl and drank it silently. The room fell silent for a moment. A few days later, the sunlight grew stronger. I calculated that the day from my previous life had arrived. And it was probably this moment. That day, at the table, I brought up the matter of the court, Marquis. Has there been any dispute in the court recently about who should be sent to the western region to assist the Crown Prince in disaster relief? Xiao Yan paused for a moment with his chopsticks in his hand and said, Yes. I lightly traced the carvings on the bowl and said absent-mindedly, I remember that Minister Shen has made great achievements in civil affairs. Why has no one recommended him? You want him to go? Xiao Yan said indifferently. I laughed and said, Court matters are not for me to meddle in. I just heard a few things and spoke out of turn. Xiao Yan tugged at the corner of his mouth. His smile tinged with mockery. Unsure whether he was laughing at himself or at me. Jiang Qingyue. I know you have never been sincere. I cannot force you. But I will not pressure you either. As long as you remain by my side, everything will be peaceful. Therefore, you should know that whatever you say, I will listen. If you want something, just say it directly. There's no need to test me in such a roundabout way. I composed myself. I had grown accustomed to using my cunning on him, to pretending and deceiving him. Xiao Yan likely knew the true purpose of my lingering by his side. All right. I spoke again. Marquis, submit a memorial requesting that Shen Changyao accompany the Crown Prince on the disaster relief mission. In my previous life, the person who accompanied the Crown Prince on the relief mission was a counselor, and that assignment became his death sentence. The Crown Prince was stubborn by nature and refused to listen to the words of his loyal ministers. He insisted on his own way in the relief effort. And the counselor, being of low rank and dare not speak up, could only let him do as he pleased, which eventually led to a popular uprising. When news of this reached the capital, the Crown Prince was merely reprimanded, while the minister was implicated and nearly executed along with his entire family. If Shen Changyao had been sent instead, first, he was known for speaking his mind in official matters and might have persuaded the Crown Prince to avoid the rebellion. Second, regardless of whether he could persuade the Crown Prince, his fate would have been grim either way. Either he would be dismissed from his post or bear the Crown Prince's grudge, neither of which would be favorable outcomes. The next day, Shen Changyao indeed left the capital with the Crown Prince. I calculated the itinerary at home and estimated that the outcome would be known soon. During my days of waiting at home, the fetus in my womb grew larger, nearly 5 months along, though it was still barely noticeable beneath my loose robes. That day, an invitation from the Crown Prince's consort arrived at the mansion, inviting the women of the noble families to admire the lotus flowers. Xiao Yan frowned, snatched the invitation, and said indifferently, You are not permitted to go. I have already refused her. I pleaded with him. I have been confined to this mansion all day. I am nearly driven mad by boredom. The doctor also said that it would be beneficial for the child if I went out more often. If you're worried, you can come with me. There are other women who aren't accompanied by their husbands. Xiao Yan stared at me blankly, his fingers trembling slightly as he held the invitation. He asked, Husband? I looked away and whispered, Yes. Come with me. I knew what he wanted to hear. So I said it. Because I had to go out, I still had a move to make regarding the crown princess. The crown prince's mansion had green tiles and yellow walls, with carved trees along the corridors, and fiery red pomegranates blooming beside them, vibrant and alluring. The crown princess's flower viewing banquet was held in the western garden of the mansion. In the sweltering summer heat, the entire garden was covered with ice, releasing wisp after wisp of mist. Due to Xiao Yan's status, I was seated in a high place, and everyone who glanced at me was within my sight. The crown princess had not yet made her appearance, and no one at the banquet could overshadow my status. But there were some who stubbornly believed that I was still the same abandoned woman I had always been. Li Yunqian spoke softly, but her words were clear enough for everyone at the table to hear. I don't know why, but I always feel that you, Mrs. Shen, bear a striking resemblance to the late wife of my husband. Sometimes I almost mistake you for her. I traced my fingers lightly along the rim of my teacup and smiled at her. Oh, that's quite an honor. Unfortunately, I think your husband's late wife had poor taste. It's a good thing she died early. A lady nearby asked curiously, what do you mean by that? I sipped my tea, my eyes twinkling with amusement as I replied, after all, a man who could be chosen by such a woman probably isn't worth much either. A burst of laughter filled the room. Li Yunqian was so angry she wanted to stand up. But her mother, Shen, pulled her back with an unhappy expression. Be careful of your health. Can't you watch out for my precious grandson? The crown princess walked over from behind. I stood up with the others to pay respects, but she specially helped me up before saying, no need for formalities. The flower viewing banquet was utterly boring. I took the opportunity to exchange a few words with the crown princess. She listened, then looked at me thoughtfully. I bowed to her and walked toward the other side, just in time to see Li Yunqian and Shen's mother arguing. Li Yunqian was facing away from me, and her feet were right above the lotus pond. My heart stirred, and I stared at her intently. In my previous life, she had pushed me into the pond like this, and the suffocating sensation of being submerged still lingered in my dreams. I looked down at my palms. If only I could push her in and let her taste that feeling. My palms clenched tightly, and I closed my eyes, quickly dismissing the thought. I turned and started to walk away. Suddenly, Li Yunqian came toward me. Why are you still alive? Jiang Qingyue. Why don't you just die? You did such a despicable thing, serving 2 men as a concubine. How dare you still live in this world? What right do you have to live, making Shen Changyao think of you every day? Why don't you just die? She grabbed my arm and growled angrily, her eyes filled with hatred. I shook off her hand and said coldly, Mrs. Shen, you should kneel before me. She sneered. You're dreaming. You're just married to Xiao Yan, that monster. He'll get tired of you sooner or later. I'll just wait to see the day you're kicked out of this house. That will be your death sentence. I turned my head to look at Shen's mother behind her, an idea forming in my mind. I said to her, Lady Shen, your daughter-in-law just told me that she intends to give the child in her womb to her eldest brother, who is unable to have children. What? She dares? Shen's mother glared at her angrily and began to argue with Li Yunqian. I smiled and watched for a while before leaving the prince's mansion. The prince's tour to the west to relieve the disaster had been prolonged, and by the time he returned to the capital, it had already been 2 months. I specifically inquired about the situation and found that although the disaster relief efforts in this life were better than in the previous one, they still couldn't escape that outcome. Shen Changyao took the place of that minister and bore his guilt. Originally, given his position, the worst outcome would have been demotion. However, I had told the crown princess that Shen Changyao had once been in contact with the Jinguogong mansion, and it was common knowledge that the Jinguogong was backed by the 7th prince. the most powerful contender for the throne. The reason the crown princess agreed to my suggestion was simply because the person behind me was Xiao Yan. Yao was stripped of his official position, and this was the result of the scheming of many factions. Not only that, but he was also ordered to never enter the court again. See, this is much more interesting. A swift execution would have been too satisfying. If he had died and then gained an opportunity like mine, that would have been too terrifying. I will not only ensure he does not die, but I will make him live on without any dignity. The imperial court's decision on Yao's punishment wasn't made until 2 months later. And during those 2 months, his wife had already disappeared. Some said she was terrified by Yao's case and fled back to the Li family in the middle of the night, begging her family to take her in. Others said she had an argument with Shin's mother at home, and Shin's mother accidentally pushed her, resulting in the death of both the 7-month-old fetus and the mother. As the first rays of dawn broke, the scent of rice porridge wafted through the long, narrow alley. The shopkeepers at the dumpling stalls and pancake shops along the street bustled about, calling out to passers-by. I held my waist and looked down at the man below the bridge, dressed in dirty white clothes with disheveled hair. Who could have imagined that just a few months ago, he was the young and promising Minister of Revenue, praised by everyone in the court? He held a slightly yellow steamed bun in his hand, his head bowed, lost in thought. I patted the dog beside me, a dog I had trained for months, and said, "Go. Take back your food." The tall black dog sprinted forward, charging straight for the steamed bun in his hand. Yao was terrified, protecting the steamed bun in his hands while fighting the black dog with a stick. He didn't deserve this, even if he had been dismissed from office. With his talent and good looks, what couldn't he do? But I wouldn't let him have his way. No one in the capital would dare to employ him or give him anything. Yao couldn't escape the black dog, so he threw the steamed bun and sat down dejectedly on the ground. When the black dog ran toward me, he saw me, and I was smiling at him. He suddenly turned away, lowering his head and covering his face, as if he was extremely afraid that I would see him in his current state. I called out to him, speaking softly, "Yao, do you know why you've ended up like this?" He stood with his back to me, his shoulders trembling slightly, but he didn't respond, only clutching the stick tightly. I continued, "It was all my doing. Everything you've become is my doing. I made you wish you were dead. Do you remember?" Yao's body froze, and he slowly turned his head to look at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. He stood up, looked down at me, and reached out his hand, but his dark hands made him pause for a moment before he hurriedly hid them behind his back. "Ah, you hate me so much? Why? Why?" I laughed, my eyes stinging with tears. "You ask me why? Since you can't figure it out, then stay here under this bridge and think about it for the rest of your life." "Ah, you," he called out to me, his disheveled bangs framing his bloodshot eyes. I wanted to climb higher. I climbed higher. Wouldn't that have been good for you too? At least those people wouldn't dare look at you with such insolent eyes anymore. They wouldn't dare to take advantage of my lowly position and covet you. After that night, I regretted it. I wanted to climb even higher. Higher than Xiao Yan. As long as I was just a little higher than him, I could take you back. So I followed the crown prince to relieve the disaster. I thought I would do it well, just like the previous times. I turned my head to look at him, my eyes cold and indifferent. "You're still using these excuses to hide your lust for power. You really disgust me." The Marquis family's carriage was parked ahead, and Xiao Yan was waiting inside. I walked toward him step by step. Behind me, Yao clutched his chest, coughed up blood, bent over, and glared at that figure with unwillingness. That day after returning to the mansion, I was emotionally overwhelmed, and the child who should have been full term began to move prematurely. The Marquis family was in chaos in an instant. When the child was born, I fell into a deep sleep. The baby's cries echoed through the room, and the house was filled with congratulatory voices. When I woke up, Nyang carefully held the child and showed him to me. "Madam, it's a little prince. Madam, take a look." I glanced at him and immediately turned away, whispering, "Take him away." But Nyang looked at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan held a bowl of food in his hands. His voice calm, "She's tired. Nyang, take good care of the child." He sat down, looked at me, and said to himself, "You don't want to see him. So I took a look for you. The newborn is wrinkled and looks a bit ugly. I can't tell who he resembles. But the wet nurse said his eyebrows and eyes are like yours. And he'll look more like you when he grows up." I'm very happy. You probably don't want to hear more. So I'll stop here. I've arranged everything. Over the next month, I'll stay at the mansion with you. We've found a wet nurse for the child, and the wet nurse will take care of him. You should focus on recovering your health. The exhaustion and pain from childbirth were still lingering, and with the matter involving Shen Changyao resolved, I felt a bit slack. Xiao Yan spoke at length, but I listened in silence without responding. Xiao Yan stayed with me in the mansion for several months. In the first month, he was constantly by my side, inquiring about every meal and even taking the place where the dried plums were kept. Later, he would sometimes go out for half a day and stay in the mansion for the other half, taking care of me and the child. That child. I saw him once on the day he was born and never again. Xiao Yan seemed to like the child very much. At night, he would always tell me what the child had eaten that day, how many times he had smiled, and how handsome he would be when he grew up. He once tried to place the child beside me while I was asleep, but when I woke up, I resisted and had him take the child away. Since then, he has never brought the child near me again. After my health improved, I began to consider another matter. Xiao Yan trusted me greatly, and I had influence over everyone in his mansion. If I were to escape while he was away, it would not be impossible. I hadn't taken any action yet when Xiao Yan came that day. At that moment, I was just getting out of bed when he sat beside me, one hand restraining me, forcing me to look at him. He pinched my jaw, his thin lips slightly pursed, his aura dark and intimidating, his gaze as cold as a knife blade when we first met. "Qing Yue, haven't you given up yet? Marquis, what are you saying? Your schemes, your manipulation, I've known everything from the start. But I've done it willingly. I've said before, as long as you stay by my side, everything will be peaceful. But if you want to escape, if you want to leave me, Qing Yue, I'll kill him. That child is so small, I could suffocate him with one hand." I looked at him in terror, my lips trembling. "You're mad. That's your child." Xiao Yan's fingers brushed against my lips, and he sneered, "So what? You don't love him. You can't keep your child. He has no value." He kissed me forcefully, grinding his lips against mine, and the taste of blood spread between us. I winced in pain. After a moment, he leaned his chin on my shoulder, panting slightly, and whispered, "Don't go, Qing Yue. I beg you." He realized what I was about to do. This Marquis family was a trap, and he was both forceful and pleading. When had the ruthless Xiao Yan learned such things? The 5-year-old child was as delicate as a porcelain figurine, intelligent and gifted. In the morning, he followed his father to practice horse stances, then studied with his tutor. Everyone in the mansion pampered him like a treasure. From the day Zhao Jiyuan was born, Xiao Yan never missed a day. He knew exactly how tall the child was at each age and how much he weighed. This tall, muscular general would learn to change diapers at night, huddle in the kitchen studying recipes, and repeatedly inquire about the child's meals. Xiao Yan raised the child well. He was lively and intelligent, with a sweet tongue and a knack for speaking. Xiao Yan said he himself was tongue-tied, keeping everything inside, which made him prone to being taken advantage of. He did not want Zhao Jiyuan to suffer the same fate. Zhao Jiyuan's father loved him dearly, but his mother often looked at him with a distant expression. Even so, he thought of me day and night. Crouching in the small courtyard and talking to the ants on the ground, father said mother is sick. Yuan must be good. When mother gets better, she can hold Yuan again. Xiao Yan had raised him for years, so Zhao Jiyuan should have felt even deeper affection for him. Yet Xiao Yan taught him daily to love and respect me, telling him of the hardships I had endured, and that I loved him, and that his mother loved Zhao Jiyuan. The chill had dissipated, and the sun was beginning to rise. The garden was filled with red flowers and greenery, bringing joy to the heart. The koi in the pond swam joyfully, and a few petals of the hibiscus fell, attracting a school of fish to chase after them. I sat under the tree, staring blankly at the green grass breaking through the rock wall in the distance. That vitality bursting forth from the hardness and pressure was awe-inspiring. Not far away, Xiao Yan and his son were studying as usual, neither too close nor too far from me. I turned my head and saw the young Zhao Jiyuan lying on the stone table, following Xiao Yan's fingers as he read, glancing secretly at me. When he saw me looking at him, he hurriedly turned his head away. Xiao Yan's lips curved into a gentle smile, softening his stern features. He was tall, and to accommodate Zhao Jiyuan, he had been bending his head for a while, occasionally raising his hand to rub the back of his neck. My fingers clenched tightly at the hem of my skirt. After lowering my head for a long time, I whispered softly, Yuan. The voice was barely audible, but the child heard it and immediately sat up straight, his eyes shining as he looked at me. He didn't run over immediately but instead pulled on Xiao Yan's sleeve in disbelief. Father. Mother. Mother called Yuan? Xiao Yan turned to look at me. A fallen flower lingered on his shoulder for a moment before falling to the ground. He raised his trembling hand and gently stroked Zhao Jiyuan's head. Go on. Go find your mother. Let her hug you. The blue birds in the courtyard sang melodiously. The pond rippled gently, and a few peach blossoms seemed to compete for spring's attention. In the gentle spring breeze, the little Zhao Jiyuan ran toward me. The tall man behind him, stepping on the springtime ground, also came slowly. The end.